You're listening to Life Inspirations. No one else can be you. You know, there's an old rabbinic saying that says this: everyone must carry 2 pieces of paper with them and look at them every day. On one it's written, you are as dust and ashes, and on the other, for you, the universe was created. And when you look at the makeup of one human being and the uniqueness that we carry in many, many areas of our physical and psychological being, every person, except for identical twins, has a completely unique genetic code. It's a combination of genes that influences our physical characteristics like eye color, hair color, and body shape, as well as our natural temperament and inherent abilities. The list goes on as to how we are different from one other human being. But to be honest, it's absolutely astounding how unique we are. And that truly means that no one else can be you. And I like the way that John Ortberg talks about life like a game. In his book, It All Goes Back in the Box, he has a chapter that says no one else can take your turn. It's up to you. You see, you're not a pawn. You're not a victim of circumstances beyond your control. Instead, you are responsible for your own life. And one of the greatest gifts that we've been given is the opportunity to choose. We are made to be decision makers. What things will you think about today? What thoughts will you dwell on? Who will you have conversations with? Where will you direct your desires? How will you take care of your body? What acts of service will you engage in? Will you allow yourself to be deviated from the task, or would you stay on task? What will you eat? How will you spend your time? All of these are calls that you will make. And when you add them all up, they create your life. No one else can be you. One of my favorite Bible characters, Old Testament characters, is Daniel. And Daniel was a champion of making wise choices right in the middle of a culture, a nation, who were screaming at him to conform his life to the pagan culture around him. You could say that the first 7 verses of the book of Daniel tell a story of a man who was a victim of circumstances that were beyond his control. King Nebuchadnezzar had conquered his land and carried him into exile in Babylon. So Daniel lost his freedom, his home, his culture, his friendships, and his status as one of Israel's nobility. He had to learn to speak a foreign language and live and die in a place that he never wanted to be. Even lost his name. His Hebrew name, Daniel, meant the Lord will judge. He was given a Babylonian name, Belshazzar, as a not so subtle reminder that he was not even in control of his own identity anymore. Daniel would have had a huge amount to complain about. The leadership of the nation, the exile, he could have blamed that for his unhappiness. He could have felt sorry for himself. He could have moaned to anyone within hearing distance. But Daniel didn't do this. And this is why he's one of my biblical heroes. And if you're listening to this today, don't fall into the trap of being a victim, of being someone who lives in the valley of, it's not my fault, it's someone else's fault for my predicament. Do something with your life. It's your responsibility. You have been made to make great choices and decisions. It's up to you. No one else can do it for you. And one day in Daniel's life, everything changed. And it's in Daniel 1:8. It says, but Daniel determined that he would not defile himself by eating the king's food or drinking his wine. Wow. He resolved in his heart that he would honor God. So the Bible says that he asked the head of the palace staff to exempt him from what everyone else was eating, the royal diet. And it just so happened that he liked Daniel. So Daniel chose. He decided. He took the opportunity to make a choice, and it wasn't a popular one. Ortberg says this: when you are floating in a sea of helplessness, you must find some concrete way to express your freely embraced deepest commitment. Obviously, the food and dietary things were important to Daniel, But it really wasn't the point, because Daniel needed to make a stand, and his actions took enormous courage, because King Nebuchadnezzar was not the kind of leader who would cut people a lot of slack. He would kill people just like that. Have a look at what he did to a king named Zedekiah and his sons. Terrible. And as I'm doing this podcast, we're in the aftermath of the assassination of outspoken Christian apologist and evangelist Charlie Kirk. He was a current day young man of great influence who have turned around the lives of millions of young people across the USA and beyond. And it really does seem to me that Charlie Kirk had a Daniel spirit about him. He was unafraid to stand up for the truth out there on the highways and byways and university campuses. But he did it with much grace. And so Daniel made a proposal to the chief official. He said, put us, that's him and his friends, on a diet of vegetables and water for 10 days and see what happens in comparison to the other guys who were eating the royal food. But God was with Daniel, and after the 10 days they were in better condition than the rest of them. In fact, the official took the steaks and bits and pieces, carbohydrates, etc. off everyone and put them all on vegetables and water. The official was so pleased because when Daniel had proposed this, he was dead scared of getting his head removed from King Nebuchadnezzar if Daniel and his friends had looked a lot skinnier than the others at the end of the time. And this wasn't the only time that Daniel and his friends needed to stand up and say enough to the culture that was around them. They were told to bow down and worship a golden idol of the king. If they didn't, they'd be thrown into the furnace, and they were, and God saved them. Daniel was told not to pray to his God, or he'd be thrown to the lions, which is that famous story that we heard when we were in kids' church. And he was thrown to the lions, but God shut the mouths of the lions, and they didn't hurt him. These guys were true to the faith that they held and in the God they served. They refused to be victims, but instead took their own responsibility in the circumstances that they were in. God has given us this great ability to choose, as we've said. And you could put whatever wording you like to that, perhaps taking initiative or being proactive, or as I've said, taking responsibility. And this is what it means to be made in the image of God. You see, God said, let us make human beings in our image, in our likeness, and let them have dominion. It's a kingdom word, this word dominion. God's plan is that everyone gets to decide for themselves. Everyone has a turn in the game of life. You see, one of the most devastating experiences in life is a sense that what I do doesn't matter. And people can get conditioned to have this thing called learned helplessness. In concentration camps or prisoner of war environments, the greatest difference between people who gave up and people who remain resilient is a sense that they can still control something, according to psychologist Julia Siegel. I remember a story about the end of World War II when the Americans liberated people who were in these death camps. In one particular woman's death camp, boxes of supplies had arrived for the people who were in the camp, for the woman. And what they found was that the boxes had lipstick in them. And so the general or the person in charge actually said, well, there's a mistake made, this shouldn't have come here. But then the woman started getting into the lipstick and putting it on themselves to try and change their appearance. And because of this, the general in charge realized that this was a brilliant thing to do because it didn't feed the woman, but it actually restored their dignity. In a sense, they moved from a state of helplessness to having something that they could control themselves in order to start the process to regain their lives as they knew it. You see, Daniel flourished because even in exile, he refused to believe that he was helpless. And in a sense, like Daniel, we will all spend some time in a strange country, in Babylon. Sometimes dreams will go unfulfilled, health will disappear, hopes will fade. The key question, Ortberg says, is not, what have I lost? It's what do I have left to build my future on. Psychologist Dan Baker puts it like this: there is a you in you nobody put there. So your body is not you. Your job is not you. Your success, reputation and possessions are not you. What your parents or boss or peers and friends or enemies think of you is not you. Your circumstances and limitations are not you. There is a you inside of you that nobody else put there but God. Viktor Frankl, the highly respected psychiatrist in Vienna, lost everything when the Nazis rose to power. He's a Jew. They took his home, career, freedom, his parents, brother and wife. His entire family, except for his sister, were killed in the gas oven. And he spent years in Auschwitz, beaten, starved, brutalized, dehumanized. But then he came to a point where he began to realize that there was one freedom left to him, and that was to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And so he made decisions, lots of decisions. He chose to cherish the thought of those he loved. He chose to give what help as a doctor he was able to offer others. And Frankl's freedom began to expand. One writer puts it like this: his guards had more liberty. They could leave the camp, walk where they wanted to, spend what they wanted. But Frankl had more freedom. And so, like Daniel, you can choose. You are you, and no one else can be you. Never give up your spirit. Never yield emotionally. Do something, even if you're not sure what. Again, I would say, don't be a victim. Make the most of what you've been given in your lifetime. Remember, no one else can be you. God bless you.